If this story touched your heart, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Are you watching from the US, the Philippines, or somewhere across the globe? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. It's another tale of love, healing, and hope, and trust me, it'll stay with you long after the video ends. See you in the next one. The air was still that morning when Alina Rivera zipped up her worn-out duffel bag. At 29, she had learned how to pack light, not just luggage, but emotions too. She stood quietly in the cramped living room of their wood house in Laguna, Philippines, where the ceiling leaked and the fan whirred like it was gasping for air. Her younger brother, Marco, lay in bed, frail and tired, the IV line taped to his arm, shaking slightly every time he coughed. "You really don't have to go," their mother whispered from the doorway, her voice already cracking. But Alina didn't answer. She couldn't, not without breaking, so she smiled, gently touched her brother's forehead, and whispered, "When I come back, we'll have enough. For medicine. For everything." Just 2 weeks earlier, Alina had seen a job post. That seemed impossible. Full-time nanny needed in Texas. Special needs experience preferred. High salary. Private housing included. For a 7-year-old autistic child. It didn't say much else. But to Alina, it was more than a job. It was a lifeline. She had no background in special needs care. She had never been on a plane, and she had never been farther from home than the neighboring province. But she had heart-tan desperation, and sometimes, that's all you need to move mountains. When her flight landed in Austin, Texas, the world felt different. The cold airport air. The sterile smell of customs. The polished floors and strangers speaking so fast she could barely understand. She clutched her documents tight. On the other side of immigration, a tall man in a black coat held a sign. "Alina Rivera." She stepped forward. "I'm Alina," she said softly. "Mr. Carter's expecting you. Follow me," the man replied without much warmth. In the SUV, Alina stared out the window at a world so far from hers. Wide highways, glowing signs, houses that looked like postcards. She arrived at the estate just before dusk. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion, set against the Texas hills. The property stretched over 5 acres. A fountain greeted her at the circular driveway. Marble columns lined the porch. It felt like stepping into another life. Inside, she was ushered to her room in the East Wing. Yes, the East Wing, as if it were a castle. Everything was cold, spotless, and quiet. Too quiet. The walls didn't echo with laughter or footsteps. They just listened. She stood by the window that night, holding a photo of her brother, whispering a prayer in the dark. Please let this be worth it. She didn't know what kind of child awaited her. She didn't know that the man she would work for hadn't smiled in years. All she knew was that tomorrow, she would meet Emily, the little girl who hadn't spoken a single word in 5 years. And somehow, deep down, she hoped her own broken pieces might help put someone else back together. Alina woke up before the sun. Her room smelled faintly of lavender and polished wood, and for a brief second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the mansion, the child, the job. She slipped into her white uniform and tied her hair back, nerves dancing in her stomach. Today, she would meet Emily. She followed the butler's directions down a long hallway, her footsteps muffled by thick carpets. At the end of the corridor was a white door with hand-painted butterflies. She paused, breathed in, knocked. No response. She pushed it open slowly. The playroom was spotless. Toys lined the shelves, Barbie dolls, Lego sets, a miniature kitchen, stuffed animals, but none of them looked played with. Everything was too neat. In the far corner, under the window, sat a little girl in a pale pink dress. Long brown hair, fair skin, knees tucked to her chest. She stared, unblinking, at a spinning music box that played the same lullaby over and over. "Hi there," Alina said gently, crouching down a few feet away. "My name's Alina, but you can call me Ellie, if you like." No answer. No glance. It was like talking to the air. She didn't push. She sat on the rug with a plush giraffe in her lap. "This is Jerry," she said, making the giraffe wiggle. "He wanted to come say hello." Still nothing. An hour passed. Then 2, Alina offered. Juice, crackers, a song, even a silly little puppet show. But Emily didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe, at least, not that Alina could tell. By the time lunch rolled around, Alina felt her hope fading. She set a tray near the girl's spaghetti, grilled chicken, fruit slices, then picked up a piece of bread and took a bite. "I'm starving," she said, half joking to herself. "If I don't eat now, I might faint." She didn't expect anything, but then just for a second Emily glanced at the plate. It was quick. A blink. But Alina saw it. She didn't overreact. She picked up a spoon, scooped a tiny piece of chicken, and held it out. "Just a taste," she whispered. A heartbeat passed. Then, slowly Emily parted her lips. Alina almost dropped the spoon. She fed her gently, careful not to startle her. When the food was gone, she sat there frozen, not sure whether to cry or laugh. Her heart felt like it had cracked open. "You did it," she whispered, barely able to contain herself. "You really did it." That night, back in her room, Alina sent a voice message to her brother. "She ate, Marco," she said, her voice shaky. "Just one bite. But it felt like I won a war." She didn't know it yet, but that one spoonful wasn't just a breakthrough for Emily. It was a sign that even in silence, someone is always listening. That healing doesn't happen in loud miracles, but in quiet, trembling moments of trust. And Alina, scared, tired, overwhelmed in one thing for sure. She wasn't giving up. Not on this child. Not ever. In another wing of the mansion, behind glass doors and security codes, Jackson Carter stood frozen in front of his surveillance monitor. The footage was grainy, black and white, but unmistakable. There, on screen, was his daughter Millie leaning, ever so slightly forward. Lips parted, accepting a spoonful of chicken from a woman she had just met the day before. He blinked, thinking, it was a glitch. It wasn't. Rewinding the footage once, twice. Then again, she ate. She actually ate. It had been 5 years since his daughter last made eye contact. 5 years of expensive therapists, private specialists flown in from Europe, behavioral coaches who came with glowing reviews, and even brighter price tags. None had lasted longer than a week. Emily shut them all out. But not Alina Rivera. That night, Jackson didn't sleep. He stayed in his study with the lights off, holding a picture frame, the only photo he still kept of his late wife, Sarah. She was holding newborn Emily, smiling like nothing in the world could ever break her. He remembered when that photo was taken. Sarah had just finished a lullaby, the baby had giggled, and for a moment, their lives had felt full. And now he lived. In silence, he'd convinced himself that was safer, easier. Business had become his escape. Deals, meetings, mergers, cold, predictable things. But watching that grainy footage shook something loose in him. The next morning, he waited near the playroom, something he hadn't done in years. When Alina stepped out to grab water, he quietly entered. Emily was sitting near the window, playing with a stuffed giraffe. Jerry. He remembered Alina calling it. "Emily," he said, almost afraid of the sound of his own voice. She didn't look up. He didn't expect her to. He stood there for a moment longer, then quietly left. In the hallway, he found Alina returning with a juice box. "You're early," she said, surprised. "I wanted to see her," he replied. "She's doing better," Alina added cautiously. Slowly, "I saw the footage last night." Jackson looked at her. Really looked at her. "How did you do it?" Alina didn't have an answer. "I didn't." "She did." He nodded, lips tight. "Still, no one's gotten through to her like that." There was something in his voice, raw, quiet, and painfully human. Alina hesitated, then said, "She doesn't need a miracle, Mr. Carter. She needs patience, presence. Someone who's not afraid of silence." He didn't say anything, but his eyes flicked to the playroom door. Later that evening, Alina found a small bouquet of wildflowers placed on her dresser. No card, just a quiet gesture. And when she looked up at the security camera in the corner of her room, she smiled, not because she was being watched, but because, maybe for the first time, someone else was finally seeing. The bouquet on her dresser was simple. A few wild daisies and lavender, probably picked from the garden, wrapped in a hand towel. Alina stared at it for a long time, unsure what to feel. Gratitude, confusion, hope. She didn't know that just down the hall, Jackson Carter sat in his study, fingers steepled over his lips, watching her reaction from the same security feed. And for once, it wasn't about control, it was about curiosity. Who was this woman, really? Why did Emily trust her? Why did her voice, her presence, shake the walls he'd carefully built over the years? The next day, Jackson called in a favor, a quiet one. Within hours, his private investigator, a man named Greg Matheson, flew to the Philippines. Greg had worked with Jackson for over a decade. No assignment had ever made him pause until now. He found Marco Rivera, Elena's younger brother, lying weak in a provincial clinic bed hooked up to rusted IV stands. Their mother, Teresa, sat beside him, fanning him slowly with a folded piece of cardboard. No electricity, no running water. Just two souls surviving on prayer and borrowed time. Back in Texas, Jackson stared at the report Greg laid before him. Photos, medical bills. A local newspaper clipping with Elena's name listed as a community scholar. Her graduation photo. Her commendation, graduated with honors in education. The file read, but never licensed due to financial constraints. She never mentioned any of it. Not once. No plea for help. No request for favors. She never even listed her family as emergency contacts. He sat there in silence, gripped by something unfamiliar. For assuming, for not asking, for almost overlooking the woman who had done for his daughter what no expert could. That night, Elena returned to her room to find a sealed envelope waiting on her pillow. Inside was a letter. Short, handwritten. Your brother is being transferred to a private hospital in Houston. Your mother is en route. They'll arrive in the next 24 hours. There's a room for them in the guest house. You won't have to carry this alone anymore. Jayshi dropped to her knees. Tears spilled before she could stop them. When the jet touched down at the private runway the next morning, Elena stood waiting by the terminal. Her legs trembled as she saw the Marco, weak but awake, being assisted down the ramp. Her mother, in a borrowed sweater, clutched her rosary with shaking hands. And behind them, silent as ever, stood Jackson Carter. No suit, no entourage, just a man watching something sacred unfold. Elena ran to her family, dropped her knees on the tarmac, and embraced them. She didn't say a word, but Jackson didn't need her to. The look in her eyes said everything. For the first time in his life, he had given something not from power, not for business but from a place he forgot existed, his heart. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about employment anymore. Maybe it never was. The mansion wasn't quiet anymore. Laughter echoed from the halls that used to sit in silence. The marble floors that once chilled now felt warm under bare feet. Emily's giggles rang through the garden as she chased bubbles with Elena's visiting nieces, while Teresa sat on the porch, humming softly, peeling apples like she used to back home. And Jackson, he wasn't hiding behind office doors or security screens anymore. Every morning, he walked into the kitchen au suit. No briefcase, just a father, brewing coffee while his daughter colored beside him. He was still learning, still fumbling through emotions he'd buried for too long. But he was there. One afternoon, while Elena folded laundry in the guest house, Jackson appeared at the door, holding something small in his hand. A drawing. Emily had made it. 5 stick figures. Her, Elena, Jackson, Grandma Teresa, and a baby with a heart drawn above its head. She said this one's her brother. Jackson chuckled. Not sure where she got the idea. Elena laughed, but her cheeks turned red. She probably just wants someone to boss around. They both smiled, then paused, eyes meeting, silence swelling between them. But this wasn't the silence of before. This one was charged. Alive. Walk with me, he asked. They strolled under the olive trees. The late afternoon sun painted everything in soft gold. Elena tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and Jackson kept his hands in his pockets, like a boy trying not to fidget. Do you remember the first time I saw her? Eat, he said. I stayed up all night. I couldn't believe it. I thought, maybe it was a fluke. It wasn't, Elena replied. It was trust. He nodded. She trusts you. Elena hesitated. So do you. They stopped near the fountain, the one no one ever sat beside until now. Elena, Jackson said, his voice low. You came here a stranger. But you changed everything. Not just for Emily. For all of us. She looked down, heart pounding. I was just doing my job. No, he said, gently. You were giving us a reason to feel again. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Elena gasped. No fancy speeches, he said, nervous now. Just one question. He opened it. Inside was a simple ring. No diamonds, no glitter. But engraved in tiny script, found in silence, Elena Rivera. He said, will you stay? Not as our nanny, but as family. As Emily's mother, as my partner, as the heart of this home. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked toward the house, where Emily stood by the window. Waving with her entire heart, Alina turned back, voice shaking, but strong. Yes, she whispered. Yes, always. And just like that, a job became a calling. A stranger became a mother. And a house built from stone and silence finally became a home crafted not by wealth, but by love. If this story stirred something in your heart, we'd love to hear from you. What part touched you the most? Was it Elena's quiet strength? Emily's first breakthrough? Or the way love found its way into a home built on silence? Let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your emotions, or even your own story, because sometimes the most powerful moments come from connection. Where are you watching from? Type your country, your city, or your cozy little corner of the world. We're building a global family of listeners who believe in healing, hope, and second chances. And if you believe that love can grow in unexpected places, that kindness still changes lives, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Tomorrow's story is just as heartwarming, and you won't want to miss it. We read every comment, and your words matter more than you think. So go ahead, share a thought, a line, or even a simple heart emoji. Let's keep the conversation going, because this space is for all of us.